Levi Jacobson, who is a renowned orator. He's a phenomenal Shliach, a Chabad emissary in Toronto, Canada. And we've asked him, as you heard Dr. Rosenberg said, that the Rambam Maimonides was an empiricist. Everything that he spoke about was real. He saw it authentic from the Torah. So when he chooses to conclude his entire works with the laws of Moshiach, there must be something very exciting for us to know about for the healing of the world, which is what our title tonight is all about, the healing of the world today, and what our future holds, that very soon, God willing, this world will become a much better place through the rebuilding of the third and final Holy Temple and the coming of Mashiach. Rabbi Levi Jacobson.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction, Rabbi Pinney. It was phenomenal to hear from Dr. Rosenberg, and thank you very much for the service that you've given to your community and to many Jewish communities that turn to you. I know a number of the schools that my children are in or consulting with you in the past recent while, so thank you very much. That's most appreciated. May Hashem bless you to be most successful, to bring much healing into the world in your area of influence. And may that spread, and may we have the complete and true healing that the world so desperately needs and wants. So what kind of healing are we talking about? We know Dr. Rosenberg didn't mention this, but there's a Hebrew saying, Yedias hamachla hichatzi refuah. The knowing the illness is half of the solution, half of the medicine. They say the story of this anecdote of this fellow that comes to an eye doctor, and he says that he has terrible pain in his right eye. The doctor looks, checks, gives him a medicine. Says, come back in a week, tell me how it is. Comes back in a week, it's just as bad. Doctor starts asking him questions. When does it hurt? He says, usually in the evening. So usually in the evening, the doctor gives him a different medicine. Comes back a week later. Doctor, it still hurts. Asks some further questions. Any further specific times when it hurts? Yeah, he usually feels a pain when he's having his evening tea. I guess he had a British origin or something. So he has his evening tea and he feels particular pain in his right eye. The doctor thinks, maybe it's the flavor of the tea. After further investigation, the doctor suggests, why don't you remove the spoon from the teacup before you drink it? That might help this, and that might bring healing to your eye. This is the anecdote. Sometimes we look for solutions and sometimes we look for medication, and the answer could be very simple or could be where we're not looking. So what kind of healing do we need? What is the healing that we're looking for? Obviously, all of us are affected in one way or another, more personally or less personally, with the recent epidemic. But I think that there's something much more going on. There's a lady in my community that works as a 911 dispatcher. And I'd asked her how work was recently. I had a conversation with her recently, and she shared something that I thought was very interesting. Obviously, it's anecdotal, but I think that there's something to it. She said that since March, and since we started dealing with the corona, at least in the true north in Canada, there was a very significant decrease in petty crime, and muggings and robberies. Very significant decrease. In fact, it almost didn't take place, or at least no calls came in. So I told her, oh, so you must have been bored. What were you doing all the time? What kind of calls were you fielding? She said, oh, you won't believe what happened. I said, what was that? There was a very frightening spike in two types of phone calls: domestic violence and suicide. These were the calls that came in. The 911, she said, literally off the hook. And to me, this is very tragic. And it tells me that, and it told me, and again, it's anecdotal, I didn't do further research on this, but it told me that there's something much deeper and much more personal that took place, that's taking place in the lives of people, often in life. And this is what Yedias HaMachla is. This is the first part of what I wanted to address tonight. What is the actual illness that we're dealing with? If you don't know what the illness is, you'll never be able to find healing. You'll never be able to find the solution. What is the medication that you're looking for? What type of medication do you need? Do you need more sleep? Do you need better food? Do you need antibiotics? Do you need to isolate? What do you need to do exactly, depending on what the problem is? So I'm suggesting tonight that the issue is, the challenge that we face, the difficulty that we face is golus, exile. How do you describe golus? How do you describe exile? And I think that this anecdotal piece of information that this lady, this 911 dispatcher shared with me, I think says a lot. What does it tell us? So let me go back for a moment. There were a number of introductions. Dr. Rosenberg mentioned this and Rabbi Penny mentioned this. Maimonides, which tonight is a very, very special simcha, very interesting simcha. Tonight is, and tomorrow, this is the 17th of Tammuz, a day that we fast and we mourn over the destruction of the Holy Temple. But this year, it'll also be tinged with an element of joy because we're concluding a cycle of the study of Rambam. Tens of thousands of people from around the world that have dedicated every single day of the year to study 3 chapters of Maimonides' great work will be concluding this monumental work tomorrow. And this monumental work that focuses on the legalities of Judaism, the very practical elements of Judaism, doesn't focus much on inspiration or spiritual concepts that of fancy, but focuses on very pragmatic and practical Judaism. Concludes this great work with a number of chapters dedicated to the subject of Moshiach, of redemption, of what the world will look like at the time of redemption. The wolf will lie, the lamb, that famous lines that we know. But Maimonides discusses it more in a very practical sense. There will be no envy, no hunger, no wars. The world will be filled with the wisdom of God, will be consumed with understanding, godliness. And the question is asked, why is Maimonides conclude his great work of laws with such ideas? Yes, it's one of the 13 principles of faith, but there are other sections of Maimonides that deal with faith matters. The first section of Maimonides deals with theology, understanding the unity of God and who God is and what God is. Perhaps the laws and the idea of Moshiach should have been included in that very section. Or where Maimonides discusses the building of the Holy Temple, maybe at that point he should have discussed the idea of Maimonides. And there are a number of, the idea of Moshiach, the idea of redemption. Why is it that Maimonides brings up this topic at the final chapters of his work? There are a number of answers that are suggested. I want to put forth a suggestion. There is a rule in Jewish teachings that hakol herlech achar achitum, that everything, that the conclusion is the bottom line. That's where everything is shared. That's where everything is told. That's the main focus. And we know this. When you make a presentation, you'll make sure that the final moment is when you try to really bring your point home. Throughout his 14 volumes of telling us how to live and sharing with us the wisdom of God, the final 2 chapters of Maimonides, he brings it all down to what is the bottom line? What is your destination? What is your goal? What is your objective? What is the purpose of doing all these mitzvahs? Yes, we do mitzvahs because that's what the Creator wants from us. But there's something fantastic that is taking place every time that you do a mitzvah. There's something called golus, exile, that each one of us, unfortunately at this point, are part of. And this is something that we must undo. And how do we undo that? By engaging in a meaningful, purposeful life, by engaging in a life of bringing redemption to ourselves and to the people around us, to our families, to our loved ones, to our communities, and by extension, when we do so, we bring redemption into the entire world. And this is what Maimonides tells us with every single mitzvah that you do. This is what you make happen. When you live a life of purpose and focus, you bring this reality into existence. So when you put on tefillin tomorrow morning, or if you still have time in the day today, if you live in Melbourne or elsewhere, or if you light Shabbos candles this Friday evening, it's not just a nice ritual or custom that you'll be engaging in, but you're bringing redemption into the world. You're bringing redemption into your own life. What do I mean by this? So going back to my 911 dispatcher, not mine, but she's part of my community that I'm blessed to work with. and she's helped many people in our city, so I'll consider her a friend. How unfortunate is it that when people are forced to be away from work and cannot travel on vacations, can't go to the parks, can't go to sports games, can't go to the theaters, they're forced to be home. One would hope that they're at a place of peace, of calmness, tranquility, time to bond with your loved ones. You can spend quality time with each other that you didn't have up until now. And how terribly tragic is it that when you don't have the distractions of day-to-day life, there are no errands to run, there are no places to hide. And how tragic is it that that brings out, unfortunately, sometimes the worst in us. Why is that? How does that happen? Because that is a state of galus. Galus, exile, is often referred to as, things that our grandparents dealt with in Russia or in Poland or any of the other places that they had to go through hardship throughout our difficult and painful history. But much more than that, galus could be lived and experienced while we're living in very comfortable lives in North America or wherever, or Australia or Canada. But we live in a place lacking focus, lacking meaning, lacking purpose, living a life of fear, greed, addiction, lust, all covering up one fundamental point: not living a life of our neshama, of our true self, of who we are and what we are. They tell this anecdote about somebody that a genie told him, or whatever it is, told him that whatever you touch for the next 24 hours will turn to gold. And he was so excited because he lived a life of poverty and really didn't have much. And now he finally had this opportunity of everything he touches turns to gold, and it'll be his. So what do you do when you're told that anything you touch will now belong to you? So in good Jewish fashion, he wants to get as much real estate as he can. So he starts running, because every step he takes now becomes his. And he's running and running. And after 2 hours, he's out of breath. He can hardly run anymore. He starts walking as fast as he can. And he starts walking faster and slower. He becomes more tired. And another few hours of this going on, and now he can't even walk anymore. He's crawling. He hardly has any energy left, but he keeps on motivating himself. This is now mine. This is mine. This is mine. And he keeps on pushing himself. This is mine. And he's crawling on his hands and feet. This is mine. And he's totally exhausted, but he knows that he could still get some more. And he takes another step. He says, this is mine. He collapses and dies. Nothing is yours. This is tragically the story of our life. Sometimes we become so caught up with greed, with anger, with negative emotions, with lust, and often is just to cover up the painful reality that we're lacking meaning, that we're lacking purpose, that we're not really living for the purpose that we were put on earth. The reason that we were put on earth was in order to make this world into a beautiful, godly garden, in order to bring out the best blessings that the world has to offer. And unfortunately, we get caught up in galus, in exile, which is every single one of us in our own ways, or I'm sorry if I'm talking for somebody that doesn't feel included in this, I'll speak for myself. We get caught up in garbage. We get caught up in different stuff. So what's the solution for that? Obviously, such a life doesn't lead to happiness, doesn't lead to living an energetic life, an optimistic life, a life of clarity, of confidence. It either causes us to live a life of quiet desperation. We just give up. You know what? I'm not idealistic. I'm not the 20-year-old anymore that I was. Well, let me just push through, have as many drinks as I can until I won't be able to drink anymore, or engage in this or that vice. Is there an alternative? Maimonides, Rambam makes it very, very clear. Not just there is an alternative, but this is the purpose of creation. When Hashem creates the world, his purpose was that you and I, that every single one of us, every single human being will have challenges, but yet rise above them. Learn how to look beyond the fog. Learn how to look beyond the difficulty, beyond the anger, beyond the greed, beyond the lust, beyond your challenges, melancholy, whatever it is that you deal with. Rise above it and challenge yourself and challenge those that are around you to bring more good into this world, holiness into this world. And for that purpose, Hashem gave us a neshama. Every single one of you have a neshama, a godly core that enables and empowers us to do the unbelievable. That godly core is confident, is happy, is focused, is calm, is at peace with themselves or the world around them. It's whatever you think is perfect is found within your neshama. It's an amazing aspect of yourself. Unfortunately, in school or friends or whatever it is, sometimes we overlook that, but that is the strongest, the most beautiful aspect of who you are and what you are. And this is what Yiddishkeit is to uncover your true potential and your true promise by uncovering the story of your neshama, the story of your soul. I'll give you an example. There was a chassid, a very pious man. I never met him. He passed away before I was born, but not much before I was born. Maybe Rabbi Pinney remembers him, or if there are some other Montreal fellows here. His name was Rabbi Peretz Mochkin. Rabbi Peretz. He was from the former Soviet Union. He made it in the early 70s. He made it to Canada, to Montreal, and he's inspired hundreds, perhaps thousands of people that went through, that sat at his shiurim and his classes, at his farbrengens. The story of Reb Peretz is a fascinating one, and I think to me it's a very challenging one as well. In order to make a living, I understand that there was a challenge with having proper kosher wine in Montreal when he was there, or kosher on a high standard that some people would like. So Reb Peretz would make wine. And this is how he supported himself, his family. And there were some other members of the community that would also make wine and also sell it, and they also supported themselves. Reb Peretz had, so to speak, a competitor. We'll call him by the name of Moshe. I don't know what his name was. And one year it happened. For people that are winemakers, they know that the primary business in the Jewish community, particularly if you're making your own personal wine for with a high standard of kashrus, the primary time of business is before Pesach. One year, this competitor, Moshe, realized before Pesach that his new stock, his new batch of wine, all went sour, all went bad. And this was horrible. It was horrible for a number of reasons. Horrible because he wouldn't be able to make money. But much more than that, because he knew, as it is in business often, that when you cannot serve your customers once, next year, they don't come back so quickly. Next year, they find a different supplier, they find a different seller, and chances are that they stay with that seller for years to come as well. So obviously, this was devastating for him. So Moshe turned to Reb Peretz. He said, do me a favor, please. My wine all went bad. Would you sell me some wine? So I want to still serve my customers. Would you sell me some wine? Reb Peretz said, sure, with pleasure. He said, whenever you need wine, take whatever, you'll let me know what you need. I'm happy to give you whatever you want. And sure enough, this Moshe was able to serve all his customers before Pesach, which was the primary time of when he made his livelihood. After Pesach, Moshe turns to Reb Peretz. He says, Reb Peretz, I've served most of my customers. Let's discuss the dollars and cents, how much I owe you. And what does Reb Peretz tell him? You owe me nothing. You owe me nothing. I'm happy to have been able to help you. Now, their parents did this, he wasn't a wealthy man. Their parents did this in order to support himself. One might think, okay, fine, sell it wholesale, if not retail, give him a good price. But why would you help your competitor and give it to him for free? No charge? Why would you do that? If a person is looking at things just from strictly business perspective, bad decision, not smart. But their parents was a different type of person. Their parents lived a life of geula. He lived a life of redemption, which is he was free of greed and free of self-image issues. And he was free of fear of competitors. For those that remember him, speak about him, he was a happy man. He lived as if he had no care on his mind. He knew that there's only one being that controls the world. There's only one being that runs this world, and how much money he'll have or not have is not dependent on his business acumen, but basically on what the Creator decided that he should have. Their parents knew that by helping another Yid, he's bringing redemption into the world. He's bringing redemption to his own life. He's not taking something away from himself. He's actually giving himself the greatest gift that he could give. This is a life of redemption. This is a life of neshama, of soul. When you start living based on the true value of who and what you are, the true purpose that Hashem put you on earth for. And this is bringing Moshiach into your life. And this is bringing Moshiach into the community, the world around you. And they tell a story of Eliyahu Hanavi. So there was at one point, the Baal Shem Tov told one of his students that he should, that before Shabbos, he should bring some food to a family. And he did that one week after another week after another week. And once, as he's about to walk into the house, it's clearly an impoverished family. As he's about to knock on the door to deliver them their food for the weekend for Shabbos, he hears the children crying to the mother and saying, "What's going to be for food this Shabbos?" And their mother telling their children that, you know what, Hashem sent Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu the prophet that Dr. Rosenberg mentioned earlier. Eliyahu the angel helped us last Shabbos and the Shabbos before and the Shabbos before. Surely Hashem will send Eliyahu to us this Shabbos as well. When we talk of Mashiach, there's the individual purpose and individual goal. When we live a life of godliness, a life of neshama, a life of purpose, of meaning, as it is in our core being, as described by Hashem, the creator, the master of the universe. And then there's the individual person that awakens every single one of us to bring this into the collective world, to collective consciousness. This is a personal Mashiach and general Mashiach. And this is what we look forward to. That each one of us do our utmost to uncover our personal redemption, our personal aspect, our personal Eliyahu Hanavi that we have within ourselves. And that for Moshiach, Hashem's anointed one, Hashem's chosen one, to bring this into the collective world at large. You might recall, January 26th, if you're an NBA fan, it might be more on your memory radar, but I understand it was BCE, before Corona era. And for many of us, we hardly have a fog of a memory of then. But there was a terrible accident that happened on January 26th, where the helicopter that was carrying 9 people, including Kobe Bryant, Olav Shalom, had a terrible accident, and they all perished, they all died. Very tragic, very sad. At first it was thought that the helicopter crashed due to engine failure. Upon further investigation, it was learned that that was not the case. The helicopter pilot was a veteran pilot. His name was Ara Zobayan. And he found himself in a very deep fog. And at a certain point, he told air traffic control that he was climbing to 4,000 feet so he could get out of the fog. He could get out of the invisible environment that he was in. Just 30 meters from what was discovered later would be that point that he needed that was beyond the clouds. Tragically, instead of ascending those 30 meters, he started plummeting, descending very rapidly. The investigators that investigated this accident later on said that had he climbed for another 12 seconds, he would have reached that point that is beyond the clouds, and he would have had a clear blue sky, enabling him to pilot the helicopter to its destination. Another 12 seconds of ascending, he would have been there. The problem was that he was disoriented, and he didn't realize that he has another 12 seconds to ascend. And tragically, the accident happened. In our generation, our time, sometimes we might find ourselves in a fog. Sometimes as we go through the journey of life, we encounter confusion, we encounter doubt, we encounter uncertainty. We encounter challenges of one or the other. But thank God, Hashem gave us a Rebbe who does guide us and does tell us, you're literally about to leave the fog. You're literally about to see the beautiful blue sky with not a doubt, with not a fog in your way. Just continue ascending another few seconds and you'll experience this. The Rebbe told us in 1991 that we're about to experience the redemption that all of mankind was waiting for since time immemorial. The Rebbe said at that time that all we need to do is increase in acts of goodness and kindness. Uncover who you are, uncover your true self, uncover your true identity, your neshama, your God-given soul that is so beautiful and so perfect, so pure, so godly. When we do so, surely you'll experience personal redemption. All of mankind will experience their redemption. And the fast day tomorrow will turn into the ultimate Yom Tov, the greatest Yom Tov, not just of concluding the Talmud, the study of Maimonides, of Rambam, but it will turn into the holiday that we're looking forward to, the complete and true redemption with Moshiach. Amen. I want to conclude with some practical suggestions. First of all, I would like to invite you to speak to your local Chabad rabbi, or you could check on different websites of joining the cycle of studying Maimonides, studying Rambam. In addition, what could be done for you to uncover the redemption, Moshiach within yourself, your Yechida, that core of yourself, is by studying about Moshiach, studying about redemption. That in itself creates a longing and a desire to climb out of that cloud, to climb for those additional 12 seconds. Do another mitzvah, another act of kindness, and may you be successful, and may we all be successful, and we have the ultimate success. Thank you very much, Rabbi Penny.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Jacobson. Very powerful, very inspirational, and may your words ring true, that we merit the ultimate redemption.